And I remember I always had it also in high school when I would feel angry at something, and then I would be in my math class, and then I would be called to the blackboard and to solve this very hard problem. And if I was angry, I was able to concentrate and to solve that problem so fast, and to completely cancel out all my other thoughts, all my other emotions, and just be laser focused on that. So I think it's so interesting to me how this typically the emotions that's labeled negative also has this immense positive side, and how we can actually use it. Welcome everyone to LifewithLiza podcast. Our mission at LifewithLiza is to share people's stories and the challenges that they have overcome, so that those who are listening in can get the strength, the courage, and the hope to be their better selves. Welcome to this special edition episode. I'm so happy to have you here. And something that I wanted to talk to you today is emotions, and how we have this wide range of emotions, and sometimes we assign a negative label to the negative emotions, whereas all emotions that we have them for a reason. And I think this was one of the biggest breakthroughs that I remember having from reading Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within, when he was mentioning that, for example, when we feel anxious in anticipation of something, then that emotion is signaling maybe we're not fully prepared, or maybe there is something that we could still do to prepare better, and hence to feel less anxious about an event in future. And if we feel frustrated, it means that we could have done something better, and it's signaling that to us. And basically it was very interesting to see how actually all of the emotions that we do have, they could be useful and they have a certain meaning, but we can just sometimes assign all these negative labels to the negative emotions and also want to not feel them. Whereas if we don't feel the negative emotions, then there are also no positive emotions, because then if everything is a positive emotion, then everything exists in comparison to its opposite. And I think it's a bit more of a philosophical discussion, but we definitely don't want to feel happy, don't want to feel only positive emotions, because if you feel happy all the time, then it's your state all the time, and you don't have anything to compare it to, so then you're not happy, it's just your neutral state. But the main point which I actually wanted to make with this video is how useful anger could be. And I find personally for myself that sometimes I manage to utilize the power of anger, and it's very, very powerful, because sometimes when I feel angry, I get almost into the laser focus state. So for example, I can feel the anger and then let that fuel my concentration to ideate ideas for the podcast, or writing my course, or solving some other problem for my other job, and just being super focused on the task. And I feel like that anger has that potential in it, because it lets you just kind of remove everything else and really focus on the task, because you feel just angry, so you just can completely dismiss everything else. And I remember I always had it also in high school when I would feel angry at something, and then I would be in my math class, and then I would be called to the blackboard and to solve this very hard problem. And if I was angry, I was able to concentrate and to solve that problem so fast, and to completely cancel out all my other thoughts, all my other emotions, and just be laser focused on that. So I think it's so interesting to me how this typically the emotions that's labeled negative also has this immense positive side, and how we can actually use it. And I wonder if it's only me who actually gets laser focused, can get laser focused when they're angry. So please do let me know. But I think it's very interesting how anger has that potential. And at the same time, I think with all the negative emotions, they can also be very helpful in general, because they've done this experiment where people had to keep their hand in a bucket of ice, in the ice cold bucket, and then they were asked to keep the hand there for as long as possible. and then one group had just to keep their hand there for as long as possible as a control group, and the other group had to keep their hand there, and then when they would think they cannot keep their hand there anymore, to start swearing. And those people who could start swearing, generating a bit of this negative emotion going inside their body, they were able to also keep their hand there for 20% longer, which is quite crazy. And I feel like those typically labeled negative emotions can actually give us a bit more fuel when we need to actually push through, and actually could be very useful. And think back in your life when sometimes you used also some of the negative emotions to actually push through, to continue working when you're tired. And has it ever happened? Just try to think consciously of it. And once you've identified if it has worked for you in the past, you can also learn that in the next time in the future when something like this happens, you can also utilize that power of any negative emotion. You can use it actually for the good. You can use it to push through. And of course, it's not good to spend a lot of time in the negative emotions, and ideally you spend most of the time in the beautiful, grateful state. But there's just something so powerful about being able to tap into those negative emotions and let them drive and let them fuel you for when you feel like you have no fuel left in your tank. And that's something David Goggins talks a lot about, how he managed to. David Goggins, if you don't know who he is he calls himself the hardest man alive, and probably he is. But he talks a lot about when he was going for 100-mile races, he used to tap into his dark side or those negative emotions to actually push through and do these humanly impossible tasks. And all of us, maybe we're not doing 100-mile races, but all of us have things that in our lives that we are doing where sometimes we feel like giving up, or we feel like we're losing the drive and we cannot push anymore. But then if you manage to utilize the power of the negative emotions, you can go for so much further. You can still continue working for at least those 20 more %. And it is very, very useful. I hope you did enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you learn how to utilize all ranges of emotions that we do experience, the whole range of emotions that we do experience, and you manage to push through the hard times, stepping into the dark side. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, comment what is your main takeaway, and I see you in the next episode.